Live, it's the Inside Scoop, Virginia. All the news Virginians want to know. Here's your host, political insider, George Burke.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Ann Cantor, your League of Women Voters official for this debate. Tonight we're happy to join with Fairfax Cable Access Corporation to bring you the first of a series of debates for the U.S. House of Representatives. Tonight we're doing the 8th District, which includes the cities of Alexandria and Falls Church, Arlington County, and parts of Fairfax County, including Reston. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan. We neither support nor oppose any candidate or political party. We are the organization where hands-on democracy leads to civic improvement. And we believe that a good government requires an informed electorate. Please join us. If you'd like to get more information on candidates, the ballot issues, and voting, go to our website, lw-fairfax.org. And now I'd like to introduce our moderators, George Burke and Mike Lane.
Welcome to Inside Scoop, this special edition. We're very pleased to have candidates Ron Fisher, the Independent Green Party, Mark Elmore, Republican candidate, and Jim Moran, who is the Democrat incumbent. We have three reporters with us tonight. From left to right, we have Steve Cahill of the Times Community Newspapers, Anita Kumar of the Washington Post, and Michael Pope of the Connection newspapers. I just want to very briefly for our audience describe how this debate is going to be run. Each candidate has drawn straws to determine their order. Each will deliver a 90-second opening statement. Following that, they will respond to questions from our reporters. Their responses will be 1 minute. Each of the candidates has a maximum of 4 rebuttals that they may offer. Following later on in the program, we are going to take some calls from our audience. Folks have been emailing and calling in questions, and those will be vetted by the League and presented to Mike and I to offer them to those candidates. At the end of the program, each of the candidates will have a 2-minute closing statement. And I welcome the candidates here tonight. We appreciate the fact that you're joining us, and we thank the League for working with us on this project. Mike, why don't you start it off?
Okay, by drawing of lots, I believe that the first opening statement comes from Ron Fisher, the Independent Green candidate. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you. I am Ron Fisher. I'm an honors graduate of the Naval Academy, served 30 years in the Navy. We happened to have our 50th reunion of the Academy yesterday, and one of my famous classmates is John McCain. He was there, and I got a chance to talk to him a little bit. And matter of fact, I tutored him for we were in the same company. He was just didn't like to study very much of the physics. He's a brilliant guy, but a fine guy, but he just didn't interested in science at all. But anyway, I served 30 years. I was in nuke submarines and destroyers. I made 15 patrols during the Cold and the war and the Vietnam War. And it's one place you can really learn responsibility. You're out there, no communications, no nothing. You have to do it. And we have to do everything a city does. That's one of the reasons I think I'm really well qualified to be a congressman. We have our own judicial system. We have to be policemen, whatever it is, food. And I'm running for Congress. When I retired, I did start a couple of companies. I have a company, Military Fire Safety, DFPA.org. See what we've done there. We've done a lot of fire protection help. And I've also have a veterans company where I hire disabled veterans. I'm not doing much on those now. But I'm running for Congress because I really think that our government right now is pretty much dysfunctional. The people don't have the control over the Congress that we need, and Congress doesn't have, they're not exercising their powers. They've advocated those, given a lot of them to power to the president, and this is a very serious concern. And we're $53 trillion in the hole. There's a lot of work to be done. I'm here to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Elmore, 90 seconds, please.
Well, first I want to thank the League of Women Voters for allowing me to be here tonight. I want to thank our journalists for coming out tonight, and to the host. My name is Mark Elmore. I have been a lifelong resident here in Alexandria for 50 years. Raised here, raised my family here. I have a son who's currently serving overseas in the United States Air Force. I have a daughter that's attending Marymount University. And being a lifelong resident here, I believe that I've learned all the needs of the people in the community. I believe that when I'm out talking to people, whether it's at farmers markets, whether we're talking to people at civic events or any other social function, that the message now is that America's not broken, that Congress is broken. And that I believe that what we need are more civil activists, people that get involved, people that are willing to put their life and their business future to the side and step up. I stand strong when people ask me about keeping the tax cuts in place. I stand strong when I speak out about ending the waste and reckless earmark spending in Congress. I stand strong when it comes down to immigration policy and making sure that we have our borders secured so that those that wish to come here unabated to do us harm can't do so. I stand strong when it comes to adopting a clean and efficient energy policy that addresses the supply, the alternative fuel sources, and again, the conservation piece. And again, I also feel that we are being successful in Iraq and that our troops on the ground should make the decision when we should come home.
Thank you, Mr. Elmore. Our final opening statement will come from the Democratic candidate, Jim Moran.
Well, thank you. I've been extraordinarily blessed to represent the 8th District of Virginia. There was a survey recently conducted by the most credible private foundations of all of the congressional districts in the country. And they identified this district as number 2 out of 435 in terms of quality of life, economic and educational opportunities, satisfaction with government, responsiveness of government, and the like. We were second only to the penthouse so-called silk stocking district of Manhattan. I think we're doing pretty good, and actually I'd much rather live here than in a penthouse in Manhattan. But there are things that we need to do. We need to do a better job of extending public transit to more communities. We can't be laying more asphalt on the ground. We've run out of room for roads. I think there are things we could do with our school system, particularly in the area of investing in early childhood development. And in terms of the national level, there are even more things that we need to do. I think we're off course nationally. And that's why I've had to oppose most of the administration's policies over the last 7 years. We've got to get our fiscal house in order. We need to wean ourselves off our dependency upon fossil fuels. And we've got to restore our reputation around the world. We've suffered a serious fall from grace, and we can restore it, but it needs to be a priority.
Thank you, Congressman. The first question will come from Steve Cahill at Times Community Newspapers, and it'll be answered by Mr. Fisher, Mr. Elmore, and Congressman Moran in that order.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Just two-pronged question here. The BRAC Commission is still considering 3 sites across Northern Virginia, 2 in Alexandria, 1 in Springfield. Would like to know which each of you favors of those 3 sites, number 1. And number 2, how can you assure us that the federal government will help us in some of the transportation infrastructure that goes along with those sites?
Well, I'll look at the transportation infrastructure first, and we do need more trains and less traffic. We've really got to stop more asphalt. And any of these places, we need to integrate it into the metro system. For example, we have this toll road that's been approved. It was an Australian company. The profits are going to go there. I think it's not the wisest thing to do there. We could make should have a metro around the Beltway, for example. So we do need to really look at the rail, tying it together and being able to use it. As far as the BRAC, I have been familiar with a lot of BRAC. I was 30 years in the Navy, so I was involved in the Charleston BRAC, and they do have a good approach to it, and of course there's a lot of land down around Belvoir there that can do a lot of things. Now, I'm personally against the shutdown of the Walter Reed Hospital. I think that's a horrible thing. I think we did, our Congress shut it down in order to get more money for out here in Virginia, and we need both hospitals, and we can make that into, for example, a public health hospital. That's what I'll talk later about that.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Elmore?
Well, I do believe that the best site available right now is in Springfield. I think that based on logistically what's going on and the transportation needs that we have, again, anytime that you get into these BRAC type issues, I strongly believe that the infrastructure really should have been taken into consideration first, and that's where I'd say again, they haven't done enough. And whether it's making sure that, again, we don't pull back, I just believe that we need to make sure we finish that hospital for our veterans down at Fort Belvoir. But I do believe that the Springfield site would be the best location for that, based on the fact that the GAO is already right there, I believe, by Springfield Mall in that area. I just think that place is a great facility to continue using, as well as the proving grounds there, the engineering proving grounds.
Thank you. Congressman Moran?
Well, Mark is right about Springfield being the best location because it's at a metro site. Neither the site on Beauregard nor on Eisenhower Avenue have immediate access to metro, although at the AMC site it's close to the Van Dorn metro station. I voted against the BRAC relocation. It didn't make sense to move 20,000 people from Northern Virginia, primarily in Arlington, Alexandria, away from office buildings that had access to metro and force them onto a military base that already suffered severe congestion. In fact, the results of a study I requested by the Army Corps of Engineers shows that rush hour will be 3 hours in the morning and again in the evening. That's insane. So I have tried to delay the move of 20,000 people into Fort Belvoir by 2011. I don't think that that's reasonable to accomplish. But Springfield is on a metro site. There's a GSA warehouse site. That's the ideal location.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. The next question will come from Anita Kumar of the Washington Post, and it will be directed first at Mr. Elmore, followed by Mr. Moran, and then Mr. Fisher.
Hello. Did you support the bill that Congress passed recently to transfer $8 billion to the Highway Trust Fund? And most importantly, what is the long-term solution to replenish that fund?
Well, I think that, again, the Highway Trust Fund bill and the legislation that has been presented, not being a current member of Congress, again, I don't have all the information regarding the entire bill, but I think that we do need to put more federal funds towards the highway projects here in Northern Virginia. The ultimate goal, though, would be to make it so that we are doing a better job, that we complete this mass transportation project we have, that unfortunately we've tried to get rail out to Dulles and to Reston. It hadn't been accomplished. I don't think that Congress has done enough. I fully supported the Tyson's Tunnel initiative, and I just think that we can do more. But in addition to the highway project, as we've been talking about, we need to talk more or less about moving people and more about getting people to work where they live. So that's why I've been a strong proponent of the virtual officing initiatives that are out there. I support the teleworking initiatives and a concept called hoteling, so that, again, we need to really focus more on getting people to work where they live.
Thank you. The next question will come from Michael Pope of the Connection newspapers. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm ahead of myself.
You're like, oh,
sorry.
That's a rude sound from that. The answer, and it's a good question, the answer is yes, I did support the transfer of $8 billion into the trust fund because the trust fund is running out of money. One of the reasons is that with gas so expensive, people are using it less, which is actually a good thing. But we need to replenish the trust fund. There is a new authorization coming up next year. That's an authorization I hope to get solid funding for Metro, in particularly rail from West Falls Church through Tyson's and all the way out to Loudoun County. But generally speaking, throughout this country, we need to improve our investment in public transit. I'd like to see more bike trails and alternative ways of getting to work as well. Part of this, though, is smart land use planning. We need to create centers where people can live and work and play and shop without having to get into their automobile and hope.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Mr. Fisher, the final respondent on this question.
I agree with the transfer of the $8 billion. I think we really ought to spend it on, for example, the same thing he said, bike trails. We ought to be working on infrastructure improvement with that money, and I don't know what kind of what would have to happen, but we really should focus on getting infrastructure improvement and things that will really employ people. We're going to have a depression here, and the main thing we need is a lot of jobs for people, not in meaningful work. And the workers of the WPA did work like this. They hung steel, built bridges, did these things. So later on I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we really do need to look at the infrastructure improvements and spending money on rail, getting the buses, and the circulating buses, have an overall plan so that people can easily get downtown. I'm not a proponent of the Columbia Pike. It just costs way too much for a very short distance. But that money, all this money together, we could really come up with a great area transit system.
Thank you, sir. Now our next questioner is Michael Pope of the Connection newspapers, and he will direct his question to Congressman Moran,
Sure, this is
followed by
gonna be a
Mr.
singer,
Fisher
isn't
and Mr. Elmore.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask a local question about Alexandria, where people on the west end are very concerned about a ethanol transloading station recently opened by Norfolk Southern. The people who live on the west end are very concerned about their safety. Norfolk Southern says they have every right to operate the station there. The railroad company was able to site the location there without any federal oversight and without even announcing to the people who live there that it was going to open. And so the question I'd like to ask is, what would you say to people in Cameron Station, Summers Grove, who are concerned about their safety? And also, what is the proper role of federal regulation on this issue?
Again, a good, insightful question. I put legislation in as a result of that ethanol loading facility to come up with a plan to enable the federal government to regulate ethanol loading facilities when they are close to residential neighborhoods. The problem is that you can't legislate retroactively. And Norfolk Southern was able to locate under existing rules and regulations. I think it was an oversight of the Congress when Congress mandated a certain percentage of ethanol in gasoline. They should have figured that the rail and other means of transportation are going to have to get closer to residential neighborhoods where the service stations are. But there really are no stringent regulations that would have prevented Norfolk Southern from locating there, and they seized the opportunity. They needed to be close to the service stations in the Washington metro area. Unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do retroactively.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Mr. Fisher?
This is an area where this is my specialty, is fire safety and codes and all. And this will probably point out that we have some problems with codes. We have different codes all over the country. But what I do have confidence in, the Norfolk Southern has a fantastic bunch of safety people. So I believe they can get together and look at this and be sure they're safe. And there's some new technologies like fine mist spray systems and to guarantee the safety of it. And if it's not safe, there should be something done differently. But the rules are very good. It's just they're not uniformly applied. But North and Southern has some good people. The safety people in the government are good people. Sometimes bureaucracy gets in the way, but we can make it. They can make it safe. I was on the National Advisory Committee for the Congressional Fire Service Institute. We had a fire service caucus. We did demonstrations out on Capitol Hill with live fires. We've got real good fire departments. The fire departments can go down and make runs on it. There's all kinds of things we can do to be sure it's safe. Be certain it's safe. Thank you.
Mr. Elmore.
Well, I think, again, it comes down to just being able to make sure that people are kept safe and keep the quality of life high here. So I can't say that, again, if it's already done, that, you can't go put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak. But I do believe that, I would not have been in support of that, especially not that close to a residential area. I consider myself a strong environmentalist. And I would say, just as we've seen in the past, an inability to take control, say, for instance, of that Morant plant down in Old Town, for instance. I just don't think enough's been done there to either have that shut down or have it brought up to modern day codes. So those are the things that I just think on a local level that we needed stronger leadership and a voice before the transaction took place. And so I just would always take a look at it and reach out to the community and say, hey, what's in the best interest of the community? But public safety is job one. And I really believe that, it's something that maybe we could have caught that before and done something about that. But I would not support putting any type of installation like that close to housing, especially not in that area.
Okay, the next question goes back to coming from Steve Cahill of the Times Community Newspapers, and it will be directed at Ron Fisher, followed by Mark Elmore and then Jim Moran.
Thank you. Simple question. Should there be a firm timeline for our withdrawal of troops from Iraq?
Absolutely, we should have a withdrawal. I have a plan on my website. I gave a copy of it to Jim about a year ago, This is an illegal war. It's against the Kellogg-Briand. There's all kinds of Geneva Convention. That's on my website too. But the critical thing is to have an immediate ceasefire. We have to have a ceasefire, have immediate relief. As an occupying power, we're required to do certain things, provide security and these items. And we should get those private contractors out of there. If necessary, get a peacekeeping force in. But the main thing is to stop the war, stop dropping bombs on kids. I was in the Navy 30 years. We could have wiped out 100 cities. I'm absolutely against war and violence now. I know how much destruction we can have. So we definitely need to get this war over with. We're spending all this money on it. We just appropriated enough money. Jim appropriated enough money to last till next June, $163 billion. We supplemented the 09 supplemental, the appropriation that hadn't been passed yet. So this is all on my website, a summary of the occupation. So we have to get this war over with now. Absolutely just right now, and we don't pull out completely, we just pull back to defensive positions. I believe it will settle down. I believe we can settle it down if necessary, get some United Nations. Thank you,
Mr. Fisher. Mr. Elmore.
Well, I think that because so many people have long said, hey, I wonder what a member of Congress would do if you had a stake in the game. And I've got a son who's serving in the United States Armed Forces overseas, so I don't take any of this lightly. I believe that General David Petraeus and our leaders on the ground have the most insight and knowledge of what needs to be done. Again, we can all debate forever, should we be there? That's not the issue. The problem is that we are there and we need a comprehensive solution to the problem. I do not believe that the United States of America's Congress setting timelines and mandating a time to come home is going to be of any benefit, because then what happens should we decide, what we're going to pull out? So again, we can all agree to disagree on whether we should be there, but the solution to the problem under the circumstances now is that we have to make it upon the Iraqi people, on their government, let them become more involved and let them set the timelines. And then as long as it makes it so that we're not back in there a year or 2 or 3 years and fighting the same fight again.
Thank you, Mr. Elmore. Congressman Moran?
We shouldn't have gone in, and we should get out. I think we should accept the Iraqi government and its parliament's deadline. The Bush administration has refused to do so, has proposed a horizon which is considerably longer. Seems to me if our goal was to establish democracy there, obviously the goal kept changing, but the most recent one is to establish democracy, then let the Iraqi people determine their own fate and future. Iraq today is going to bring in more than $90 billion in revenue this year. They've got more than that in surplus. And why the American taxpayer needs to continue to pay for training their troops, pay for building their schools, their hospitals, even to pick up their garbage is beyond me. They are more solvent than we are. Every dime of this Iraq war has been borrowed, and it seems to me that they have the capacity to now get their country running, and we ought to get out of there and let them do so.
Thank you, Congressman. Ron Fisher has a rebuttal. 30 seconds, Ron.
And I will say that a recent article in the Washington Post showed that President Bush is not listening to the generals. He's intent on keeping those troops there. Maliki was installed by us. That was not election. We rewrote their constitution, which is against the Hague regulations. We're stealing their resources right now. We've changed their laws. We've privatized. There's a good summary of the Iraq occupation on my website. But we definitely have to stop this war. It is illegal under every form. And Maliki would like to keep us there a little longer because he'll get assassinated.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Another rebuttal from Mr. Elmore?
Yeah, I would just like to add that, again, folks, we keep hearing everything but what we need to hear, and that is a solution to the problem. And I just don't believe that grabbing our ball and jacks and coming home immediately is the solution to the problem. Everyone can agree that the surge is working, and that those that supported it up front or that those were against it. We can't deny the fact, the evidence is there, that we have reduced the violence, that I don't see it as ethnic cleansing over there, the work we're doing. And I don't think that the solution is just bring everybody home on an immediate withdrawal. I think that we need to realize what's going to happen if we do leave.
Thank you, Mr. Elmore. The next question comes from Anita Kumar from the Washington Post. And I'm going to ask that everybody keep their responses to about 45 seconds, if the timers would pay attention to that, because we have to do a hard break at the half hour.
Who answers the first question?
And this one goes to Ron, I believe.
No, I think this one goes to Mark Elmore.
Mark Elmore.
Mark Elmore.
The House recently passed a bill that would allow offshore oil drilling at least 50 to 100 miles offshore. And many critics were opposed to that, saying that more resources were available closer to the coast. Would you support oil and gas drilling off Virginia's coast? And more specifically, do you support drilling within 50 miles?
Absolutely. I unequivocally have evidence that shows that there are plenty of reserves out there and that we need to get our own resources now. So while in this age of scientific enlightenment, it has been proven, we did not lose a drop of oil in the Gulf under these, whether Katrina or Gustav. And I think that, again, it can be done safely. I think that the revenue that it would generate for us here would be incredible, but that's just one piece of a comprehensive energy plan we need. It's not the only thing we need to do. We do need wind, solar, alternative fuels, biofuels, in the conservation piece. Again, it's all part of the plan. But if you have food in a pantry next door and you're starving over here in this room, you're going to unlock that. And I think we need to get off our dependence on foreign oil.
Thank you, Mr. Elmore. Mr. Moran.
I do not support drilling within the first 50 miles offshore, and I voted accordingly. For one thing, the Bush administration's own Energy Information Administration said it would not make a significant difference in the price of gas, 1 or 2 cent reduction over the next 10 to 20 years. Why we need to give the oil companies that remaining 20% that is the most environmentally sensitive. Not only should we protect our shores, but we also ought to provide something for the next generation rather than exploiting everything available to us as soon as possible. In fact, we have given 300 million acres to the oil companies to drill. They have 68 million of proven reserves that they're not even using, and 40,000 permits onshore. This was not necessary, and I think it's a sham to suggest it's needed.
I'm going to ask Mr. Fisher to hold off his response. We have to go to a break in about 20 seconds, and I don't want to cut you short on your time. I would just remind our viewers that if you do have a question, you can reach us at 571-749-1166. Our guests are Congressman Jim Moran, Democrat, Republican Mark Elmore, and Independent Green candidate Ron Fisher. Thanks for watching.
She's had more than a dozen fractures. And in the next few years, she faces 2 major surgeries to strengthen her fragile bones. She's only 10 years old. Most people don't worry about fragile bones until late in life. For those with osteogenesis imperfecta, brittle bones are a concern throughout their lifetime. Find out how you can strengthen this child's future.
Diabetes is a killer. After I was diagnosed, I didn't feel sick, so I didn't listen to my doctor. Then it struck. I had a heart attack, then a stroke, and I was only 49.
Most people with diabetes also have high blood pressure and cholesterol, which can cause severe heart damage. In fact, 2 out of 3 people with diabetes die from heart disease or stroke.
Don't let diabetes destroy your life.
Call for your free diabetes survival guide. Choose to live.
Once again, George Burke with the Inside Scoop, Virginia.
Welcome back. Our guests today are Ron Fisher, Mark Elmore, and Congressman Jim Moran, running for the 8th Congressional District seat in our November election. When we left it, they were discussing offshore oil drilling. Because of time constraints, Ron Fisher did not get to respond to that question. I would ask Anita Kumar of the Post to please rephrase that question for Mr. Fisher.
Okay, simply, do you support oil and gas drilling off the coast of Virginia, and specifically, would you support it within 50 miles of the coast?
I do not support the drilling. I agree with Jim Moran on this. They have plenty of places to drill now. I think it's mainly try to grab more area and more oil. We have to really work on these resources way better. And that's basically one of the problems in Iraq. The big oil companies are trying to get a percentage of those oil profits. If you read my website there, you'll see this. I think it's the same thing here. The oil companies, we really should own that oil for the people, and the oil companies should be working technical support type contracts. So I'd oppose any more additions, and as Jim's right, it will make no difference in the next 5 years at least, and it'll probably be 10. Plus our technology will improve over time, and it will be better and easier to get it out when we need it. Thank you.
You have a rebuttal, Mr.
Yeah, I do. I would just like to say, well, can you imagine if 10 years ago they wouldn't have said we won't have any product for another 10 years? And I truly believe that in this time, it is a national security issue. I have proposed legislation that would be a food, fuel, and freedom bill that would require this country to be off our dependence of foreign oil by 2019. And those are the hard, absolutely firm decisions we're going to have to make. There's been no leadership. There is no energy bill in Congress that's comprehensive, that covers everything and gets everybody a bipartisan bill. And that's what we need. We need to unlock Washington and get a solution.
Thank you, Mr. Elmore. Mr. Moran, another rebuttal.
On this, sure. We've had the opportunity to do that, and the Republican Party opposed our efforts to have more energy efficient engines. Now, the automobile manufacturers were opposed, and a number of people in the Democrats as well. But if it had been done when we tried to do it in the 90s, we would have saved all the money we're importing from OPEC today. But the Bush administration has cut by 80% our research in wind power and solar power and geothermal. That doesn't make sense. We need to develop alternative energy, and we need to do it now.
Thank you, Congressman. I just want to point out that Mr. Elmore has used 2 rebuttals, Mr. Fisher has used 1, and Congressman Moran has used 1, just so you know where you are. And now we have Michael Pope of the Connection newspapers, and you will address the question to Congressman Moran, followed by Mr. Fisher and Mr. Elmore.
I'd like to ask a question about earmarks, which have become sort of a central fault line in this campaign. The advocates of earmarks say that they're a vital way to fund needed projects. The opponents of earmarks say that they do an end run around the legitimate budget process. For those of you who support earmarks, I would ask the question, why won't you release the list of the requested earmarks? And for those of you who don't oppose earmarks, or excuse me, for those of you who do oppose earmarks, I would ask, what do you say to the municipalities who depend on these earmarks for funding vital local projects?
I do support earmarks, and if I trusted the current government to distribute funds rationally and equitably, it wouldn't matter so much. But you know, after 9/11, Tom Davis, Frank Wolf, and I sat down. We realized we weren't going to get enough money into our public safety agencies, police, fire, emergency medical, and so we earmarked $45 million. It is well spent, and I think we have the best public safety personnel and organizations anywhere in the country in Northern Virginia. We wouldn't have if we hadn't made that earmark. Now, in terms of disclosing the ones you request, I get enough requests already. Thousands of requests. I don't want to generate more. I think I have a responsibility to disclose those that I do make, because that's taxpayers' money. But I don't think I need to invite even more people to be asking for earmarks. It's more than we can handle and respond to already.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Mr. Fisher, earmarks.
I absolutely oppose these earmarks the way they're being done now. We really need, for example, on the supplemental, there's several $1 billion for C-17 aircraft. We don't need those. The Air Force didn't need them. The United States didn't. This is in the supplemental. It's supposed to be an emergency. Those airplanes won't show up for quite a few years. And they're there to get Boeing employed. That's important. But we're not even building the right kind of aircraft. So the idea, you need to sit down. The supplement, there was no markup on it. I requested a town hall meeting. I requested Jim provide a town hall meeting. I requested that they debate, they have a markup on it. There was no markup. It was full of pork. It's full of pork and earmarks. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's good to keep employed. But the main point I would make is we need firefighting aircraft. We had a $2 billion fire. That $2 billion, a C-17 aircraft will carry 18,000 pounds of water. The aircraft we have now will carry 1,000. The tankers, we need to get out of the war business and use firefighting.
Mr. Elmore.
Well, I have always been against earmark spending because, again, what the normal person would see as a traditional role for earmark spending or using part of the Treasury and taxpayers' money to accomplish roads or rail or what have you is now taking a turn for the worst. And again, we just recently had a situation where Congressman Moran, I think he was in where they earmarked $2 million to California businessman who is under investigation or pled guilty for the potential in a stock fraud case. But again, the couple in California gave him a $20,000 contribution, and I've called for him to return that. And again, I'm just saying that creates the problem here in America, where they want complete transparency of the members of Congress. And I just think we need it as a circuit breaker. It's not like it was where we were going in daylight and asking for resources. And I think, unfortunately, there's no accountability and there's no oversight, and a misuse of money like that just leads to people having a lack of trust in Congress.
Thank you, Mr. Elmore. Mr. Moran, a rebuttal, I presume.
I better rebut that one. First of all, it didn't go to Mr. Samueli, who you're referring to, and there's a limit. You can't give more than $2,300, but it went to the Samueli Institute, which is located in Alexandria, which does alternative medical research for the military, and I'm proud of what they are doing. The military has acknowledged it has saved lives, improved lives. It's doing wonderful work. And I appreciate the fact that Mr. Samueli contributed to it, and I'm glad I did that here.
Mr. Elmore has another.
I would just like to say that Mr. Samueli is a California billionaire, that the business that he has here is for herbal medicine and acupuncture. I don't think that is the best use of our tax dollars. So to give a guy $2 million and then the guy is absolutely going to,
But it didn't go to him.
Well, but again, he's in, and they pled guilty to a serious crime that may turn into something even bigger. And I just don't think that we should be accepting contributions from individuals. That just gives people the impression that something's not right. And that's all I'm saying. And that's why I personally will not do earmark spending.
Michael Pope has a follow-up question.
At the risk of beating a dead pork, I'd like to follow up on the earmark question. The question, Congressman Moran, was why won't you release your list of requested earmarks? Not the ones that were successful, those are a matter of public record, but your requests.
And I answered that. I get too many requests. And if people know that their competitors or their other agencies in the same field, whether it be housing or social services or healthcare, whatever, if they know that they're asking for money, they're going to ask for money as well. I already get thousands of requests. I can't provide more than 1% of the very best that we're asked. I mean, the percentage varies every year, but I don't want to generate more requests. We try to find areas that of greatest need within Northern Virginia and respond to that. So to reveal what people have asked us to do, it seems to me that's their prerogative. That's private information. That is their information. When I respond and I make taxpayers' money available, that's something I have done, and I should release that. When they make requests of me, I don't think I have a right to release all of that. And I've got a selfish reason. I don't want to generate even more earmarks by doing so.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. The next question will come from Steve Cahill of the Times Community Newspapers, and it will first be directed at Mr. Fisher, followed by Mr. Elmore, and then Mr. Moran.
Thank you. It's been a character-building week or month, I should say, on Wall Street. Do you support the financial bailout that's been proposed by Secretary Paulson?
Absolutely not. That money is, they're buying a thing, derivative and bad debt. It will not help the economy. It will not help the homeowners. It is absolutely a scam on the taxpayers. What we need is to put a freeze on the mortgages so those people don't get shoved, foreclosures don't keep going on. We need to get the FBI to really investigate this thing. This is the problem has been, for example, interest rates. The interest rates should have been taken care of years ago. As soon as Bernanke came in, he started raising the prime rate and all the interest rates. I had a small business loan, so I knew. It went from 10% guaranteed loan to 14.75. I think that's all part of a big plan to scam the homeowners. It is absolutely absurd for the for the citizens to bail out Wall Street. Those guys get $21 billion in bonuses last Christmas in New York alone.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Elmore.
Well, unfortunately, the wheels are already turning on that the Secretary has already spoken out and the plan is rolling. What I would support would be setting up something similar. You know, when the savings and loan crisis took place in the late 80s and the 90s, they set up the Resolution Trust Corporation. So why don't we do the same thing here and get some trustees, some people that we know and trust are going to do the right thing, a bipartisan approach. Again, this isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. This is saving the country. Our whole financial system is in complete upheaval. But I think it's a direct result of a lack of oversight and a lack of involvement. Congress turned a blind eye, just like the guys from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. All the money that these guys got when they were left. And I truly believe that if we made it so that if your company was going down and that you were leaving, and I can say the same thing to any of these leaders, that if you're going to get taxpayer money, that absolutely needs to be capped, and we need to have some sort of restrictions and structure because they're taking advantage of the people who are paying taxes, and that absolutely is unacceptable.
Thank you, Mr. Elmore. Mr. Moran.
For the audience, this is being taped on Monday evening. Last Friday, I spent 2 hours on the phone with Hank Paulson and Ben Bernanke. I've spent most of the weekend studying the proposal, and I still have some major reservations. For example, there is a Section 8 that absolves the Treasury Secretary from any liability or judicial oversight over the decisions that he or she makes. Now, that extends not to Mr. Paulson, but any new Treasury Secretary. I think that's a dangerous thing, to give someone that much authority without any accountability. And $700 billion is all borrowed. It's all borrowed from the next generation. It's going to be an enormous additional amount of interest. As part of the package, the Congress is asked to increase the debt ceiling to $11.3 trillion. I think there are other ways that we can accomplish this, well, this is much too extensive a subject to discuss.
I'd like to take the liberty to give each of these candidates another minute, starting with Mr. Fisher on the same topic. It's just too important. And I'd like to interject one more thought. My understanding is the way that this bailout is set up is that we will be bailing out some foreign banks as well.
Yes.
Mr. Fisher.
And I saw the number today of $1.8 trillion. I don't think it's capped. The critical point about a depression, I was born in '35 in a wonderful town where the bosses they liked the people and they didn't lay off people. They cut back on the work week. The critical thing is jobs. If whatever trillions or billions or whatever it is needs to go into infrastructure, green line, and working. It does not need to go into Wall Street. This is derivatives, which are an invention. It's horrible. The stock market is supposed to be in a corporation. That money is used to pay salaries and pay people, and then those people, when they start making a dividend, then they pay stock dividends. This whole thing has been a Ponzi scheme. The Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were paying these massive dividends to bring the rates up. They were getting $100 million. Reigns got that salary. That's unconscionable and immoral. Somebody wants to invest money in a...
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Elmore, another 1 minute.
Well, again, I think that the problem is, again, it's a lack of oversight. I think that we can do more and we should have done more. I think that, again, they're doing all they can in the perception of the government to make it so that we keep from having a complete collapse in our financial markets. So while I believe that we need more accountability, responsibility, I think, again, if we can get it to where we have a good group of people, again, a trust organization, a core group of people that can take and handle these types of problems right now. Again, I don't think that it's a good idea to have an open-ended budget of $700–800 billion and just say, oh, by the way, I'll tell you a little bit later. If we need it, we'll give some to here and there. I just don't think that's the way to go. And I just think that we have created a monster. We have literally gone without keeping any eye on our systems and the economy, and we're just paying the price for that lack of responsibility right now.
Congressman Moran.
Greed is the accelerator that drives a capitalist economy, but unless you're willing to tap on the regulatory brakes once in a while, you're going to crash. We learned that 75 years ago, and we've learned it again now, because over the last 7 years, there's been too much easy money, too little regulation, and too little judgment. Now, we've seen the highest corporate profits ever in American history in the last 7 years. A third of them have gone to the financial services industry. And they have been so profitable because they've been willing to take risk. It seems to me there ought to be some risk on their part if they're willing to risk other people's money. We've gone from reserve requirements of roughly 12 to 1 to 30 to 1. That's what Lehman Brothers had, 30 to 1. In other words, you put up $1 and you get and you're able to work with 30. That's too much. Now, what we tried to do was to put in more transparency and more reserve requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Moran.
Administration wouldn't do it.
Thank you. The next question will come from Anita Kumar of the Washington Post, and it will be posed first to Mr. Elmore, followed by Mr. Moran and Mr. Fisher.
There's been a lot of talk in your election and the presidential race about, and even the last question, relief for homeowners. Should President Bush's tax cuts set to expire in 2010, should they be extended? Why or why not?
Well, I absolutely think that those tax cuts need to be extended, and here's why. I truly believe that when you are in a recessionary period, as we are, that you need to put more money in people's pockets. And I think that by increasing taxes, by making it so those small business owners or those people that are doing the bulk of the work here in the country, to further burden them and small business owners and industry, I just think that would have the absolute opposite effect. And I think anytime you can give people more money in their pocket, and again, it comes down to watching the wasteful spending. You see, Congress has just gone wild with spending. And that's where the true problem is that you need to offset that, just like you would do with your home. You can't just go use a credit card for everything and not bring in enough resources. So there has to be balance. I support a balanced budget amendment. I just think that we're not doing enough in Congress, and we really need to do more to make it so that working families have what they need to keep going. And it all is started with these fuel prices.
Thank you. Congressman Moran.
Well, if we had had a balanced budget amendment and stuck to it, which I voted for, then we wouldn't have been able to do these tax cuts. No, I don't support the tax cuts, and I voted against virtually all of them because not one dime of those tax cuts has been paid for. Now, you know what happens? Our children have to pay for them with interest, and our grandchildren. People say, well, it stimulates the economy. We can look back now. We have the numbers. 13% came back to the economy. 87% was borrowed. That's not fiscally responsible. And I don't think we should be cutting taxes anymore, as Senator McCain suggests, when we don't pay for it. If you're willing to pay for it, as George Bush the 41st did and as Bill Clinton did, then you can balance the budget. But it's irresponsible to ask our kids to pay for it, and that's a large part of the problem. Money has been too easy. It's gone to the people who needed it the least. Almost 40% of the benefit of the tax cuts has gone to the top 1%, 70% to the top 10%. That's not a fair distribution.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Mr. Fisher, 1 minute.
Well, I have I've looked at this for many years. We have a horrendous wealth divide, and it's going exponentially. Fewer and fewer people are collecting more and more of the money. You may be familiar with the Gini curve. I would have taken an approach. I pay property tax on an automobile, and I get a minor deduction. It's $3,000. Car's worth $9,000. I think we need two major taxes. One is count all wealth as property, and make that and have a property tax and have a income tax. Otherwise, if you try to tax this wealth, if a guy has $1 billion making 10% on it, it'll still go up exponentially. This is one of the biggest problems we have. So the idea would be to have a tax, but I would also give massive deductions for good ideas. Have T-Bone Pickens say, I want to donate money for these windmills. I want to get this thing working. He's got plenty of money. But give him a big deduction on if he really does something good with the windmills.
Thank you. We have reached the, go ahead, but the problem is you got to be very quick because we're running out of time.
I just wanted to go back to you. I'm not sure you exactly answered. Would you support the extension or not?
Well, I would, if they don't do what I'm saying there, I would support, I would keep taxing. I would increase it, the proper progressive taxes on the income. And I would not, let me say this, I would keep the taxes on. I would not, I guess you support the extension is what I'm saying, the extended. I would keep the taxes going.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. At this stage, they always say, time flies when you're having fun. Well, the fact of the matter, we've reached the point where I want to make sure you each get your 2 minutes in your closing statements, and we will start with Congressman Moran.
This is the closing statement?
Yes.
Oh, fun. I thought we were going to hear from the audience. Okay. I think things have gone very well in Northern Virginia. Compared to the rest of the country, we are doing extraordinarily well. But again, we can't rest on our laurels. We have to keep investing in our children, in our healthcare system, in early childhood development, in public transit. But we can't be an island or even a city on a hill. We are part of a larger community. There are a lot of problems we need to face. One of them is to be more fiscally responsible. I think we ought to require that any tax cuts be fully paid for, any increases in spending be fully paid for by raising revenue. That's what we have to do as a society. We're not saving, we're not conserving, we're not providing for the future, and as a result, we're going to leave our children with a lower quality of life than we inherited from our parents. That's wrong. Now, in terms of our international role throughout the world, we have fallen from grace over the last 7 years. We need to restore that. We need to sit down and work with people, even our enemies. We need to sit at the table and negotiate. We have substantial leverage, but just because we have a military that is superior to all other militaries combined doesn't mean that we should lead in our relationship with other countries with military force or military threat. We are in a different world today. We are dependent upon much of that world, where in fact we're paying China $60 million every day just on the interest that we've had to borrow from them. So there's an interdependency that we need to recognize. I do think if we put a greater emphasis upon human rights, particularly the empowerment of women, especially in the third world, it would help our reputation dramatically. I'd love to see a national investment in early childhood development for every child in the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Mr. Elmore, 2-minute closing statement.
Well, I'd like to say that it's been an honor to be able to participate in the process. I think that the way that the country is going right now is that we can see this either as the glass half full, the glass half empty, and I think as I'm out talking to people that we realize that greater things are yet to come and greater things are yet to be done in this city. And I just believe that, like everybody else, we need change. Myself, other servants, we just want an opportunity to participate in the process so that people get the true change, the hands-on, the involvement that's going to make a difference here. Friends, I truly believe that we need to do more, that we need to cut taxes for working families, that we need to do more, that we need to eliminate the reckless and wasteful spending in Congress. I truly believe, again, that we need to make sure our borders are secure and that we need to make sure that we have everything under control when it comes to the environment, energy policy, and doing more when it comes to educational programs that have a true benefit. And again, I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in this process. It's been an uplifting experience. And I think that my views, my vision, and my values will absolutely be what we need in this country to get the job done and to get it so that we are the best and brightest and safest place. I think that we just have so much to be grateful for and so much to be thankful for. And I look forward to serving if elected.
Thank you, Mr. Elmore. Mr. Fisher, you're the last one. Your final 2-minute statement.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think we've got that. For example, the economic questions about the house. We have tremendous crisis in this country. I know we can solve it, but what I'd like to think about is the fact how dysfunctional Congress is today. Jim says the president is responsible for this war. They could cut off the funding in an hour. They could provide money to protect the troops, whatever. Congress has passed these laws, the Military Commission Act, that takes away habeas corpus. It doesn't take it away because you can't do that without amending the Constitution. We have tremendous problems. The citizens and the people of this country are not in control of the government, and Congress is not in control. The president is this massive transfer of power to the president that's going to destroy us. He has no, for example, his job is to ensure the laws are faithfully executed. When they pass a law, he writes a signing statement. We cannot keep going the way we are. And I have, what I'd like you to do, I think about it, I'm looking for your support. I think I'm the best candidate for this job. But whether you support me or not, I have a website, wethepeoplenow.org. And it has what I think we need to do on there. It's open-ended. There's an overall plan of what we need to do. There is a platform of the people. The plan plans these steps, but there's a platform. And in the Navy, when we had a problem, Rickover, the toughest guy I've ever known, demanded that we fix the problem and the underlying causes. So this platform discusses that. What is the underlying causes? Jim mentioned greed. We've got to solve that problem. And we need an information and education program that educates the people into things like I talked about on this tax. People aren't going to buy that hook, line, and sinker. And we also need to replace the people. There's a plaything on there to replace unsatisfactory government employees. I worked in the shipyards, I worked on massive overhauls, and we have ways of doing that. So I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
First of all, I would like to thank our three candidates tonight, Ron Fisher of the Independent Green Party, Mark Elmore, the Republican candidate, and Congressman Jim Moran, the Democratic incumbent, for participating. I wish we had another hour, and I think the reporters do too. We had a lot of questions, but we appreciate it. I also want to thank our panel. I want to thank Steve Cahill of the Times Community Newspapers, Anita Kumar of the Washington Post, and Michael Pope of the Connection Newspapers. We appreciate your participation. I want to thank Mike. Mike, it was a pleasure to have you next to me. You kept me honest. You know, I am a Democrat, Mike is a Republican, and that's how we do business. And most of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters, number one, for what they do in terms of holding these debates year after year and getting community involvement and the like. But also for allowing Inside Scoop and Fairfax County Access Channel to in fact do this debate. So having said that, we hope that you will tell your friends it was on. It will be repeated on Channel 10. It'll be shown on other stations across the Northern Virginia area, and it will be in fact up on the League of Women Voters website, which is lwv-fairfax.org. Good night.